Bill, is that something with, you had talked about the last time? When we continued. All right, welcome this afternoon to our Board of County Commission meeting. Just a mic check. Paul Jones, can you hear us on YouTube?
Commissioner, yes, I can hear you loud and clear, thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you. Again, welcome this afternoon to our Board of County Commission meeting. And as always, we start with a prayer, a reading or thought, and the Pledge of Allegiance. And we look if there's any volunteers in the audience who would like to participate with us and either lead us in a prayer, reading, or thought, or the Pledge of Allegiance. Are there any volunteers in the audience? Pledge is taken. Prayer, reading, or thought? Anybody? Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. Come on up. Oh, right to the microphone. Oh, either way. Yeah, I didn't see that microphone there. So, thank you.
And then
Prayer, reading, or thought? Yeah. Yeah.
your name. I'm Katrina Cole, and you want me to give the prayer and read it? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for this chance that we have to gather together to discuss problems and issues within our community. We pray that we may be able to find correct solutions and that we may be enlightened to know the correct way to proceed. We pray for thy spirit to be with the commissioners and with everyone who needs to present or who has any comments that they want to make today. And we pray for our county and for the inhabitants and for our state and for our nation. And we pray that we may do our best to help our communities and those around us. We say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Please repeat the pledge with me if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for participating with us on that. We will start with a work session before we go and organize our agenda. And it's a work session to discuss the Provo River Delta Restoration Project with the Utah Reclamation, Mitigation, and Conservation Commission. So come on up. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Just go ahead and speak into the microphone. That way the people online can hear as well. And then.
Thank you. My name is Mark Holden. I'm the Director for the Mitigation Commission. And here with me today, and who will lead off with part of the presentation, is Melissa Stamp. She's a project coordinator with us and has done a fantastic job managing this Delta Restoration Project to date. Also with us, Russ Finley is with the Department of the Interior with the Central Utah Project Completion Act Office. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here again. It's been some time, a year and a half or more, since we've given an update and a presentation to the commissioners. So we thank you for the opportunity.
I think the last time we met, we were standing out there doing some filming. And
That's right, yes. Yourself and Commissioner Ivy also participated in the groundbreaking video that was prepared, and we appreciate that. Okay. Melissa?
Can you guys hear me okay? Excellent. So again, my name is Melissa Stamp, and I'm the lead project coordinator for the Delta Project. And again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. just starting off, this is kind of an idea of where we're headed in the next 30 minutes, I think is how much time we have. So I'll be starting off by giving you all an overview of the project. I'll touch a little bit on some of the coordination we've been doing with the county over the years on this project, as well as some of our stakeholder outreach. And then Mark will get into some more details regarding agreements and land transactions that we'll need to execute with the county. Before I get too far along, since we don't have a lot of time with you today, I wanted to make sure you knew where to go to get more information about our project. We have a very thorough project website at provorriverdelta.us, and there's videos, a story map, a lot of information about the project. I would like to also invite the commissioners and anybody here today to join us for a site tour. We're doing public site tours on the second Saturdays of every month, and you can sign up for those on our website. We'd also be happy to arrange a special tour for the commission anytime. We have a sign up for newsletters that Mark will set out. And some fact sheets as well, if anyone wants to grab those materials. So definitely learn more about the project. So this is an overview map to give you an idea of the overall project features. And just to help you get oriented, we're looking at the mouth of the lower Provo River. Utah Lake State Park is at the bottom left on the screen. We'll see if my pointer actually works. It's barely showing up. So there's Utah Lake State Park. Provo High School is up on the upper right of the slide. And in a nutshell, the project involves acquiring about 260 acres of agricultural land and diverting the majority of the lower Provo River's flow north into this constructed new river channel and delta area. We'll also have to lower the north half of Skipper Bay Dike, shown in a dotted yellow line on this slide, to allow Utah Lake to expand eastward and reoccupy something closer to its historic shoreline. The existing channel will remain in place and continue to receive a small amount of water flow. We'll be also building a small dam downstream end in the state park that will pond water and kind of maintain a fairly constant water elevation in most of that affected lower channel section. The project also involves a lot of recreation features, and I'll get into those in a little bit more detail later on in the presentation. So that's kind of what we're doing and what's it going to look like. So this slide is showing the mouth of Hobble Creek, where a similar project was completed by the June Sucker Recovery Program in 2008. And really the idea here is to connect the river channel to an expansive area of high quality wetland habitat that will provide good nursery and rearing habitat for young fish. And that is the kind of habitat that's currently lacking on the lower existing Provo River channel. And that's because essentially that's a portion of channel that used to be the bed of Utah Lake. And it's been dredged and channelized and levied. And essentially there's not wetland vegetation for young fish to hide in. There's not a lot of food. And that's relevant because at its heart, this project is tied to June Sucker Recovery. And if any of you aren't familiar with the June Sucker, it is a federally listed, now threatened, previously endangered. It was downlisted earlier this year. So a federally listed threatened fish species that lives only in Utah Lake, only place in the whole world where this fish exists naturally. And every spring, thousands of June sucker swim up the Provo River and spawn, and they produce millions of young little larval fish that then drift down and kind of get stranded in this low habitat section of the existing Provo River. And that's kind of a bottleneck in the life cycle of the June sucker, and that is kind of what our Delta Restoration Project is meant to correct, to fix that bottleneck and help achieve recovery of the fish. While I have this slide up, I just want to emphasize that this is very much a multi-agency effort. Our agency is one of 3 lead agencies, and we're all working under the umbrella of the June Sucker Recovery Program. And we're partnering with stakeholders even beyond that 10-agency recovery program. So our Delta project is a key part of June Sucker Recovery, along with many other efforts that the program's been implementing. This slide is meant to also emphasize that June sucker recovery is a key aspect of water supply in Utah Valley and also South Salt Lake Valley. And that's because of environmental commitments tied to the Central Utah Project, the federal water project that helps Utah tap its supply of Colorado River water. And so continuing development and operation of those facilities is dependent upon sufficient progress towards June sucker recovery. In terms of schedule, we started construction last spring, and Commissioner Lee helped us kick that off by participating in the groundbreaking video. And we are planning to be, assuming everything goes well, all complete and open to the public in 2024. Just touching on a couple of significant elements of the project. It's a very large and ambitious project. The one I want to emphasize for you today is the fact that we're creating a publicly accessible, protected open space with recreation opportunities. And as so much more development occurs in Utah and in Utah County in particular, those areas become that much more precious as places for people to escape from the freeways and the strip malls and spend some time in nature and gain the mental health benefits of those opportunities. Another key thing that the June Sucker program does is protect flows in Provo River through some investments in in-stream flow water supplies. And that really makes sure that Provo River continues to be an amenity for the community, a place where people can go fishing, find some cool water, some shade, place to kayak, and that sort of thing.
So what that
Yeah.
map on the bottom left-hand corner, what is that?
That is what Utah Lake was originally called by some of the early Native American settlers when the Spanish explorers first entered Utah Valley.
Okay.
It was called Laguna de Timpanogos. And there is a Timpanogos nation that kind of affiliates with their ancestors having lived and fished Utah Lake in the past, including June sucker. So we've been doing a lot of outreach, particularly partnering with Utah Lake Commission for some of their outreach events and various other opportunities as well. And then I want to emphasize that we've definitely been coordinating with Utah County a lot. I've been with the commission about 6 years, and we've been working with the county quite often on recreation designs through that time. And I think Mark and other staff on the commission were working with the county through the NEPA process leading up to this project, even prior to that. This map is showing kind of the planned county involvement regarding the recreation features that we're constructing as part of the Delta. And the county relevant features are shown in that yellowish orange color on this map. And one of the big ones I want to mention is the trail that we'll be building along the berm that's going to form the south boundary of our project. And that is shown in the kind of black and yellow dashed line. And that is where, again, as I mentioned, we have to remove the north half of Skipper Bay Dike, which currently has a trail on it that the county maintains. It's a dead-end trail. Essentially, that piece of trail is going to pivot onto this new, what will become the new lake shore, and then be extended so that it connects to the Provo River Parkway Trail system, the new Lakeview Parkway Trail that Provo City is building, and that is intended to connect to, the broader regional trail system around Utah Lake eventually. And so that is a trail system that our intent is our agency will fund the construction of that, but then the ownership of those features will be handed off to the county for long-term maintenance. We also have a viewing tower planned, a new trailhead parking area, and then along the existing river channel, we've been working with Richard Nielsen and Cade Christensen and Glenn Tanner and various staff to hone in on some good recreation designs for fishing platforms and non-motorized boat launches along that section of the existing river channel. So those are some of the amenities we've been coordinating with the county on as well. And this slide just highlights a couple of other of those existing features on the existing river channel and planned features. This red circle is around a new community park that we're coordinating with Provo City Parks on called Delta Gateway Park, right at the diversion point. And then these are just some of the spots where we've planned some fishing platforms. So that coordination is ongoing as we finalize those recreation designs. The county's been great. We've had to coordinate to get floodplain and pumping permits as we've started construction. They helped us coordinate the trail closure and make sure there was notices placed for that. We appreciate the groundbreaking video participation. And we also have a funding agreement in place with the county for additional mosquito monitoring. So that's kind of a overview of what I was going to present, and I guess I'll hand it off to Mark. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's a lot of great information.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, for that overview. As Melissa has said, we've been involved in the planning stages for this project, formally at least, going back to 2010. And so we've had quite a history of involvement. We've appreciated working with county staff and commissioners in the past. We've taken a little hiatus, I guess, on focusing on some of the formal agreements that will involve Utah County. We've addressed some issues regarding Provo City's airport and how we're going to handle aircraft hazard mitigation associated with that. And I'm pleased to say we're very close to having agreement on that score. And so we thought it was a good opportunity and a good time to come back and speak with the commission. And there are a couple of agreements that might not be doing this right. There we go. A couple of agreements that may be familiar to Commissioner Lee and Mr. Shawcroft and some of the others. One is what we've referred to as an implementation agreement. And essentially what this is, it's kind of an overarching blueprint regarding the Delta Restoration Project. Signatories to that agreement would be the Mitigation Commission, of course, the Department of the Interior, Central Utah Water Conservancy District, Utah County, Provo City, and several divisions within the Utah Department of Natural Resources at the state level. And the idea behind that is just to kind of lay out an understanding of these are the different project elements, who's going to be responsible for what, both in construction and then in terms of long-term operation and maintenance. We attempt to identify the different agreements or documents that might need to be prepared among different subsets of the parties in order to implement the project. And so that implementation agreement, like I said, we kind of put a temporary halt on that. But now we're ready to move forward again and hope that Utah County is ready to engage with us as we try to move that towards the final. The second one, we've called it the Land Transfer and Management Agreement. And the concept behind that agreement is that upon project completion, the plan is that the Delta area land ownership would be transferred to the state of Utah for administration by the Division of Wildlife Resources. The recreational facilities, trails, and so forth would be deeded an easement to Utah County. The facilities themselves would be ownership would be deeded to the county, but then an easement in place for future use, O&M, and so forth of the trail and trailhead facilities. And so again, that's another one that we hope to be able to renew our discussions about and move towards agreement on.
So Mark,
Yes.
and I haven't had my mind into this for some time, so I don't remember all the details, but I do remember some of the conversation that we had. And my concerns have always centered around a few things. We appreciate that it's being built and then turned over to us, but I usually go to a little further down the road and what are the strings attached to it that then bind us to maintain it at certain levels, and how is that paid for, and who pays for that. on a management basis. And so I'll have to get, I don't remember the details, so we'll have to get back into that.
Sure.
But I'm always cautious to that. If we're looking out there and we say there's a 10-year life cycle on pavement or for, on the trail or whatever the upgrade is with that, what that looks like. And I'd hope that in our agreement, and I know you've been trying to help massage some of that from the past. I remember that. I remember there was some massaging you were trying to do, and it was getting hard to do that. So I'd hope that we could kind of resurrect those and get our minds back into them again, where there's an understanding that, I appreciate that this is going forward, and I think it's going to be a wonderful facility there, not just for the June Sucker, but for the surrounding citizens that live there too. But I want to look on a long-term basis what that looks like 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And if it becomes something to us that becomes a little more onerous than advantageous into the future.
Right. And we understand that. And I would say that one thing that we have done along the way is we've tried to coordinate extensively with county staff and with the idea that whatever does get designed and then built would be with county approval. In other words, we're trying to minimize the use of customized equipment, facilities, and things like that would tend to cost more, not only to put in place initially, but as well to provide O&M funding for. So that's something that's been very much on our minds, and it's been brought to our attention by staff of the county.
Yeah, I think we even had like a look back phase that we were looking at, and anyway, I think those will come back in. I'm just trying to remember all the details to it.
Right. Yeah, it has been a while, and so I'm glad we could come here today and give you an update. A couple of things I will mention specifically. There we go. There are several grants of easement that we need to establish and work out. Some would be from the county to the USA. Others would be from the USA to Utah County. And what they include is, Melissa touched on this, a small portion of the Skipper Bay Dike, the trail there, easement was purchased with Land and Water Conservation funds. And so that portion of trail will be removed as a part of the project, but will be replaced with other trail segments. And so the net increase to the county, there'll be a loss of about a half mile of that trail on the Skipper Bay Dike, and there will be a net increase of about a half mile of trail then associated with the South Berm and the connection to the river. And so there are some details that we'll need to work out, and I'm confident we can work through them, but it is going to take some time to make sure that we follow the correct process, primarily because of the Land and Water Conservation Fund nexus. There needs to be no loss in net benefit to the public. And so there's a process that we can go through that, and there's a state coordinator with Parks and Recreation for the state that can help us do that. We also do need to construct a split in the existing Provo River channel. We will send, the majority of the flow north and into the Delta area, but there will be a facility there, a diversion type structure that will enable us to deliver flows to the existing river channel to maintain that as a recreational amenity. Utah County also owns that north bank of the Provo River. And so we need to move a portion of that so that we can construct the new river channel through it. And our plans include a pedestrian bridge to enable the existing trail system to stay connected, but there would be a bridge that we would construct in order to do that. And I'll show in a second, I have a map that shows where those are. And then in a year or two, we propose to construct and install an aeration system in the existing Provo River channel. And the idea there is just to enhance water quality. The lower river already currently suffers from some poor water quality certain times of the year. And with an aeration system, that will help ameliorate that problem. Then some of the easements that the USA would convey to Utah County would be for ownership of the new trails that we pointed out, and some of the trailhead facilities at the Skipper Bay location. It's this vicinity here with the red circle around it. That's the location where we'll be constructing a diversion, if you will, to take the river channel to the west and then north and still keep flow going down south into the river channel. And that dashed line that you can make out on the north side of the river channel, that's the approximate current alignment of the Provo River Trail through there. And so we'll need to put the river through there. You can see the pedestrian bridge that's planned and then a reconnection to the trail system that way. Another location, we've mentioned this trail segment on the west side of the project area. It's circled in yellow on the right-hand bottom corner of the page on that map. So that's a segment where there's an existing easement. And then also on the other map, the red circle shows the Skipper Bay trailhead area that Melissa had talked about. Oh, there's our. And some other agreements as a part of the project plan. We've committed to perform some improvements at Alligator Park, the existing trailhead there. And again, these are all items that are up to the county. And we need to coordinate with all of you to make sure that whatever gets done there is what the county wants done. We talked about installing some fishing platforms to enable better access to the river corridor there. UDWR, the Division of Wildlife, is planning to manage that as a community fishery with stocking. And so the idea is it will be enhanced and more accessible opportunity as far as public availability goes. And these are just some of those points that, in working with staff and others, we've tentatively identified so far for some of those facilities to be built along the existing river channel. That sums up what I wanted to talk about regarding the Delta project, and look forward to working again closely with the commission and staff. And if there's a main contact that we should renew discussions with, if you could let us know, then we'll proceed to try to get some of those coordination sessions set up. And we look forward to it. While I'm here, I just wanted to make a quick plug. Within this fall sometime, we're expecting to release a draft EA regarding our Utah Lake Wetlands Preserve. And the EA will focus on a comprehensive management plan and transfer of the Utah Lake Wetland Preserve properties also to the state of Utah. For those who may not be familiar, this is just the last slide I have, shows a map of the lower portion of Utah Lake. The green outlines are the areas that were identified in the CUP Completion Act back in 1992, within which our agency was authorized to acquire properties to establish the Wetlands Preserve. And the yellow areas indicate those properties that we have been able to acquire over the last 26 years. It's all been willing seller, working with landowners on a cooperative basis. And so you can expect to see that draft EA, and we look forward to any feedback that you may have on that with us. So again, thank you for your time. We appreciate being here. Do you have any other questions for us before we
I don't.
get on with your
My
business?
my only question was going to be, as we look at this, particularly the area that's supposed to be restoring the area for the suckerfish, so we're looking at creating an area where they would naturally thrive? Because I know there have been a lot of efforts by people to grow and reintroduce them in hatcheries, but this would be to create an indigenous
Yes.
environment.
That's the ultimate objective for recovery. Due to the hatchery and culture program and some other activities that the June Sucker Recovery Program agencies have implemented over the last 20 years, the species is recovered to the point where it's not an imminent threat of extinction, which resulted in the classification as threatened. But it still is threatened. There's a lot of concerns. The biggest obstacle that probably exists for the species in terms of being recovered is the fact that there's very little natural recruitment. And that's one of the things that this project is really focused on, is to provide a much more enhanced opportunity and a habitat area for those young juvenile sucker as they drift down the river to find a hospitable place where they can avoid predation, where it has the food resources and so forth that they need to survive to a large enough size where they can make it on their own out in Utah Lake and eventually come back in 4 or 5, 6 years as spawning adults themselves.
So from what I understand, one of the reasons they're so endangered is because the ecology of the lake doesn't really support them anymore. So wouldn't a complete cleanup of the lake have to be an integral part of this?
There are a number of factors, you're right, that have impacted and led to the June sucker status. Decline in habitat quality, loss of habitat, just outright loss due to dredging of the various tributaries and so forth of Utah Lake over the years, has created conditions that are real challenging for this stage in their life cycle. What we've been able to learn through our stocking and monitoring programs of the June Sucker program is that if you can raise fish to 8-inch or 12-inch size and stock them in the lake, they do very well. They grow very well. And so they seem to be able to survive just fine once they get past that bottleneck. Okay. And so that's the particular objective of the project that we're talking about, is to provide a habitat where they can do that, where the young June sucker can survive.
Okay,
A
thank
couple of
you.
years. Yeah.
Are we still farming them up in Utah State? Are they
We
still?
are. They are still being cultured, and we're stocking 20 to 25,000 12-inch fish is what they're currently raising. Monitoring showed that the return on a 12-inch fish is a much higher percentage than on an 8-inch fish. And so even though it takes longer, takes an extra year to reach that size, the survivability of them is so much higher that it's worth it. And so, yes, that still is a component of the project. The idea is that eventually it won't be needed because June sucker will reproduce significantly enough on their own to maintain their population.
Are we also raising them in the Spanish Fork hatchery there? Or are we using them for that site for something else?
In the past, there have been some fish that were transferred down to the hatchery in Springville and grown out to a larger size in some of those ponds on the Springville hatchery. Yeah. But it's not currently being used for June sucker culture. They are still raising a lot of trout, on the east side, and on the west side, they have begun to culture some other native fishes as well.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Right. Thank you, Mark.
Melissa, thank you.
Take our crops from you.
I don't see the black dot behind the eye on this model. Do you?
It's just a model.
That's why they're endangered.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move now to organize the rest of our meeting. As you'll notice, our consent agenda is empty, and as we organize our regular agenda items that we do not hold to keep on our regular agenda, they'll automatically move to a consent agenda, which means that all three commissioners have looked at them previously and have agreed to it individually, which means that on this meeting, we move it to a consensual, a consent agenda. We've looked at those. So with that, let's start with items 1 through 10. I know that number 7 needs to be held for action and a
I wanted to
finding.
hold 4 and 5, just.
4 and 5 as well. Okay. Any others from
Did you say
items
10?
1 through 10?
Did you ask to hold 10?
No, I think right now we just have 4, 5, and 7.
Yeah, let's hold 10 just to confirm a couple of things on that
Okay.
one.
Nope. Going through items 11 through 20. Number 11, we have to hold for
I was gonna
action
say-
as well.
That was my question, if we have to hold that. That was the only one I had.
Okay. Any others?
20 is a ratification more than just entering a decision, I think, isn't it?
20 is a ratification.
Okay. I don't have any otherwise.
Okay. Items 21 through 30.
I
I'd like to hold 28.
was going to say 28. And I had questions on 29 as well. Just
29.
more informational.
Okay. So 28 and 29 will hold. Items 31, let's see, 31 and 32. I don't have, anybody want to hold those, either one of those? And then we'll leave it on consent, let's see, and then I have that we need item number 33. And that's all. And 34? Okay. So if we leave it on consent, then to strike items number 35 and 36, and that we have approved and set a date, time, and location, meaning today's date, this location, following the completion of our regular meetings for items number 33 and 34, if that's agreed to.
I agree with that,
I will.
yes.
Okay. So Alice, if you could recap that.
You bet. Okay, I have us holding 4, 5, 7, 10, 11, 28, and 29. And then for the closed meetings, we're going to hold 33 and 34 as stated, and then striking 35 and 36.
Okay, thank you. I think so. That's what I have as well.
Okay.
So with that, then, if an item was not held to stay on our regular agenda for discussion, adoption, approval, or whatever the item as stated, then the rest of the items now have moved to consent, meaning that they've been agreed upon, ratified, approved, as stated in our regular agenda. So with that, item number 4.
Yeah. So item number 4 is something that I have worked on for about the last month, and it's a resolution recognizing and supporting National Breastfeeding Month. As I went through and looked at the policy that we had for our employees here at the county, it became blatantly aware to me that over the last 2 years, I have nursed my daughter Genevieve, and she's come to work with me quite a bit. And what I realized is if I had been beholden to the policy that we as a county have for our employees, I would not have been able to successfully nurse my daughter. And I wanted to make sure that every woman in this county had the opportunity to nurse their child the way that I had the opportunity as an elected official. So I worked with our HR department. We came up with a resolution in support of National Breastfeeding Month, and item number 5 will be a change to the policy. This is nothing revolutionary. This is a policy that I had at Caterpillar 15 years ago when I had my first child. So I've been able to successfully nurse all 3 of my children because of policies from my employers that allowed me to provide for both the nourishment of my child and have a thriving career. And I think that we at the county, it's time that we do that as well. And so I wanted to make sure that every woman in this county had that opportunity. So the resolution is pretty straightforward. It says, whereas human milk provides the ideal balance of nutrients for an infant's growth and development, reduces the risk of infection and chronic disease, protects mothers' and infants' health, and may reduce the risk of childhood obesity. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners, Utah County, desires to support National Breastfeeding Month to recognize breastfeeding mothers throughout the county and the country. And whereas governments everywhere should remove any law that seeks to infringe upon the rights of mothers to take care of their children to the best of their ability. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners, Utah County, universally rejects any and all efforts to stigmatize or place any undue burden on breastfeeding mothers in the workplace or otherwise. And whereas Utah County government desires to amend its breastfeeding policy to be more supportive of breastfeeding working mothers. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Utah County, Utah, hereby recognize and supports National Breastfeeding Month and seeks to implement improved breastfeeding policies in the workplace. So it's pretty straightforward. So with
great.
that, thank
That's
you.
great. I appreciate you putting this forward. This, of course, just applies to Utah County, right? And
Correct.
so
This would just be Utah County and Utah County.
government-
I mean, we
Utah County
support,
government,
we're
yeah.
the statement supports all breastfeeding mothers, but the policy change
Policy
would
is Utah
just
County.
be to support breastfeeding mothers. And like I said, the changes in the policy are not anything revolutionary. They're things that I had at my employer 15 years ago when I had my first child.
I mean, our original one had 1 year, and this one goes as needed.
As needed.
As I read down
Mm-hmm.
through it, there's some extra stuff in there for break room, if I remember correctly. I mean, you could probably outline a lot better
Yeah,
than I
absolutely.
can, but
That's
I
a
think that-
big
I
part
think
of it.
yeah,
And
there's
the other
break
part of it is it
ease,
says that it
access.
allows ample time for nursing. I know, for example, if you have a child that's sick and therefore your supply needs to go up, you might need to pump more than twice a day. And our policy allowed for twice a day. But if we have a woman that's got a sick child, she may need to pump 4 times a day.
Right.
Right. And so it's very reasonable. The things that the changes, like you said, you outlined most of them, and it's really just removing those barriers from any woman in this county from being able to have a thriving, budding career here at the county and also care for her child as best she can.
Fantastic.
So with that, I move that we accept and adopt items number 4 and 5.
I can second that motion. I read through those, so I fully, heartily support those, yes.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution and approve and authorize the signing on 4 and 5. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 7 is to approve or deny a fee waiver. And I'm not sure, but have we done this one before? You know if we've done this before, Richard? Are you here to speak to it? You did last year?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna say this is
Yeah,
the
I just
second one.
wanted to
Yeah, this is the
to
second one.
clarify
one we
that.
did
It looked
a year ago.
familiar, so that's
Yep.
why I was wondering on it. Okay. I don't have any questions to it. I'm ready to move forward with it. We
yeah,
need
fully
to
support
find
this. Yeah,
a
this is the
finding.
second, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, with that, I will move to accept item number 7.
Yeah, I move.
With the finding
With the finding of approving
that it's in the best
that
interest.
it's in the best interest of of Utah County to apply a fee waiver.
And I
And
can,
that the benefit to the county outweighs what the fee would be.
Oh, okay. And that I move
They get
that
it
we
all
accept
straight.
a finding to a fee waiver, that there was a benefit to the county that exceeds the amount of the fee being waived.
Yes.
so should we play that recording back?
Can you repeat it?
I can second that motion.
Okay. All right. I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Good luck to you on that.
Keep
Yes.
it up. Keep it up.
Okay, number 10, to approve the contract with IGM Technologies Corporation. Commissioner?
I just had questions about the content. This is a continuation of what we talked about last week, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, we've discussed this multiple times and trying to figure out a way to fund this because it's such a critical part of what we're trying to accomplish this year. So, yeah, it has been briefly discussed in various contexts.
And is this in this year's budget or is in following year's budget?
We have identified funding. First of all, we believe that a portion of this at least could be covered by ARPA funding this year. Whether the commission decides that that would be an appropriate, source of, use of those funds or not, that's irrelevant to what we're doing. We have identified funding source where we could pull the money for to cover this. This year, we would have to postpone another project that has been anticipated. That being, excuse me, the contract management software project that we had budgeted for this year. So we would take some of that money and have to push that forward to next year a little bit.
This particular topic, when did we start this item, this option?
Well,
Was it this calendar year or last year?
so the way we look, when I started working for the county in April of 2020, one of my mandates was to revise the way that we do budgets. And specifically at that time, we were, they were looking at this type of a software to be able to produce a better budget document that we could provide to the county. As we looked at this and I started investigating the options that we had, it became very clear to me that what we really needed to do was to get an improved budget system that would allow us to do better budgeting within the county. And that was the first phase of that. The second phase of that was to be able to take what we were already putting forward and moving that into a budget that people could see and understand and read. And quite frankly, when I applied for this position, one of the first things I always do when I apply for a position is I look at their financial statements and I look at their budget to see what's going on. And I kept looking on the website and I couldn't find the budget. And then finally I realized it really was those 14 pages of schedules that you absolutely don't like just as much as I don't like them.
And we've talked about that a lot.
And I've seen that because it doesn't help anybody other than the accountants understand what's going on with that. It doesn't help the commission. It doesn't help the departments. It doesn't help the public to understand any of that, what's going on. So I realized that we were lacking in that with the support of our clerk auditor at the time and our current clerk auditor. We embarked on a process to improve that. And so we obtained, and we've been working with the Questica software, which is actually is going very well and it's being very well received by the departments. And all of them look at it and say, well, this is going to be a great option for us going on in the future. So the next step to that is getting something out there that we can have a budget book. So a budget book, what it is it will include a lot of information that can be disseminated to the public in electronic fashion. When we come to the commission, you won't have to rely on everybody telling you every thing in these work sessions, remembering it all, because you're going to have data in there. It starts off at a high level and then it goes down into each department and provides words. It provides pictures, it provides graphs, it provides numbers, it provides multi-year comparisons of information such as performance measures, budgets, and those head counts, FTEs and all those kind of things. So there's a lot of information that this will provide for us. And we started working on this and putting it together in Word and Excel. What we discovered as we were doing this is that it's very time intensive. And while we could do it manually, the staff time that would be required to do this would cost significantly more than $5,000 every year to do this. And by getting this incorporated into our system, we will be able to reach your constituents. We will be able to reach the underserved people of this community who maybe can't make it to these meetings for whatever reason. They have to work, whatever. And some of them, quite frankly, would be afraid to come to these meetings. But this will give them an opportunity to see what we as a county are doing with their money. And as I had a discussion with Commissioner Lee about this last year, my personal opinion is that the citizens of this county aren't so adamantly against a tax increase per se, but what they are against is a tax increase without accountability, without being able to understand where that money is going to. Now, the commission has made a decision on where we want to be with the taxes, and so that's not even an issue for discussion right now. But I still believe that regardless, the members of the residents of this community, of this county, should be able to understand where their tax dollars go, and this is the next step in getting us to that. Providing a high quality budget book that will take that information, provide it in an easily understandable format for people who aren't knuckleheads like me in the accounting profession, okay? Non-accountants don't speak accounting. And this will be in plain language. In addition to that, what we'll be able to do on top of this is doing the budget book, we will be able to produce a budget in brief, which is a summarized budget that is even easier for people because it won't have nearly as much in this stuff. So that's what we're working towards doing. And so we thought that it was important enough that as a department, we discussed this and determined that we should sacrifice the timing on one project in order to move this up and get it moving forward.
So Rudy, with the current form that we have in here now, the way that you're proposing it, I can support this in moving this forward. Just want to let you know.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to, excuse me for elaborating a little bit, but I'm so passionate about this and what we're trying to do as a county. We're trying to help the residents of this county, and we're trying to make it better. And so that's why I kind of got on my grandstand a little bit here. Amelia's heard it. She was right there alongside
Not
of
only
me.
have I heard it, but obviously I'm a huge fan of transparency and accessibility.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, as you can see, as I've been here the last few years, transparency and accessibility are things I've highly supported, and so this brings transparency to the budget, and it makes it accessible.
So what I see is that it costs just under $4,200 to get it going for the subscription fee this year, and actually to implement it, it's going to be another $12,000 on top of that.
Correct. The annual renewal is going to be $5,000.
Yes.
We did it as shortened it because we're trying to sync it up with our other Gravity product that we have so that they renew at the same time.
I'm curious on the service fee for year 2, is that a permanent annual amount? Will that increase a certain percentage from year to year to year?
That's the same amount that they've charged because it's an add-on to our other subscription that they intent is that I've been told is that it will remain at $5,000 per year.
Add on to what is this part?
Yeah, what we're using for the financial statement software, financial preparation software.
Okay.
Which I'm sure that as you go through, as our clerk auditor goes through and does a list of priorities, this would be one of them that would be an additional to the budget that we didn't have last year.
Well, except that if we're passing this and moving forward on it, if this is going to be passed with our current monies, then it's going to be something that will roll into the future, that budget.
But it's taking away from a budgeted item,
Correct.
so we're going
And
to
so
have
that
to make
will,
sure it's
there
one
will
of
be
the
some
priorities.
additional stuff on there, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
unless the other one's reduced.
Correct.
Right,
So we'll have to see a 5,000 increase in somewhere in the budget for
or a reduction
22
and
future
increase,
years,
like
yeah.
he was mentioning.
I would guess that where we're pulling it from this year right now will be reduced. That's just my guess, but.
So if we all in part it would be 16,162 between the two items then.
Yes.
And I'm open to avoid them delaying other areas. We could perhaps use that amount from the ARPA funds. What's your thoughts?
No, that's where I get sideways on it. If we do it this way, we can always go back and retro if we need to with ARPA money. But in this sense, I think we can do it, and then we can move forward with it. And then as we look back, as we put our big projects in place, we can look back and say, hey, these are some
replace
areas
it
that
later.
we can recapture if needed.
Yeah. So the clerk auditor's department has found a savings that they think that they can plug this
Right.
into, and then we can do that knowing that if that savings for some reason didn't surface, we could backfill with ARPA money, but we probably won't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would give us a few months to make that, get to that decision.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a time window right now. My goal is hopefully we'll be able to bring this to you when we pass the final budget in this format. And if we get going on it now, we will probably be able to make that.
Okay.
If we wait until next year, then it's probably going to be at least 12 months before we have that available. And, you know, my goal is that everybody will be able to understand to some degree our budget.
Okay.
You know, and so I just think it's a huge thing for our
Be great
community.
to so everyone can see it in 22.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
All right, well, with that, I feel comfortable with it. I will move to adopt item number 10.
And it would include using existing funds within the department.
Yeah, and it will use existing funds within the department to cover the costs.
I can second that motion.
Yeah, I got a motion and a second to approve the contract as stated in number 10. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Okay, number 11 is to receive the recommendation proposal from an RFP that we had sent out. That is a request for proposal on underwriting services for our transportation sales tax revenue refunding bond. Robert.
So the committee evaluated the proposals that were received, and there was a unanimous pick, number 1, RBC, and it was a tie for number 2 and 3 between JP Morgan and Wells Fargo.
Any discussions or any reason why not to go with the number 1 recommendation?
I don't have any.
Okay. Motion?
I would make a motion that we go with number 1 recommendation, or RBC, because for no other reason, unanimous decision on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and I will second that motion.
Just for clarification, that includes authorization to sign the agreement with them as a part of the agenda.
And to negotiate a contract.
It
Yes.
would actually be to sign the agreement. That would be in the works, the timing issue. So this would authorize the signing agreement. That would have to be reviewed. It would be a standard form agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes,
as stated in our agenda.
as stated in our agenda.
Okay.
That's what I was seconding.
All right. Got a motion and a second. Just lost my place. On item number 11, to receive the recommendation proposal as stated, and also the signing of the agreement as with the selector of RBC as that contractor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, number 28 is to approve and authorize the signing of an agreement with the Utah Department of Health for COVID-19 testing activities in K through 12 schools.
I asked Ben or Dave or both to address this, and maybe Eric. So this is about $680,000 that will be used from this point through the middle of 2024, so about 3 years.
I think it's 800.
And its purpose is to
It's 800,000
800.
for this school year.
I see 680. Where am I missing the 800?
There's 600,000 for contracting out, subcontracting out, and then there's another 200,000 for a coordinator and the second
Contact tracing.
Contact
assistant
tracing.
schools.
I don't know if you have the correct contract, Commissioner Sakovic.
Maybe, oh, the breakdown in the back might be the one that clarifies it. Okay, that must be updated version. Thanks, Eric. So this is $800,000 for about 36 months to through the middle of 2024 to, and the purpose of
it's
this.
for 1 year.
It's for 1 year.
It's
Just
for
the 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
July
I'm just reading
31st,
this again.
2022.
year.
It's basically for the 2021-2022 school year.
So I do have an older version, okay.
And it's our deliverables for this is to assist with we need somebody to help with the crazy amount of interaction between all 3 school districts. The data we're
Closer to the
receiving.
microphone.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that, guys. And it will help us with that interaction for testing needs. If the 2% threshold hits, or 30 students for those schools that have less than 1,500 students in their student body, then that by state law kicks off the Test Tuesday event that the LEA, the Local Education Authority, needs to conduct. And so we will have, a nurse will be hired to assist with those efforts with the data. And also, this also is for contact tracing and case investigation. There's going to be a lot of that going on with the complexities of positive cases in our schools.
And the purpose of this is to ensure the kids are able to stay in class. That's the ultimate aim of this.
Correct.
And it's whatever testing is done, it's all confidential. It won't be released to public or held in public records somewhere.
We'll follow
except
our
for medical
disease
reviews.
investigation rules and laws, as with all diseases. And yeah.
And this money is released in support of, is it SB
107.
107?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not just
107.
in support of, it's a mandate for us to do to support the schools.
And that's part of that state law that was
That's correct.
signed off. Was that the end of March or
Yes.
May? It was signed off. So this money is coming based off that state law to go
Right.
to the health department. Is it received by the school districts, or is it just the health department of the county?
The $800,000 comes to the Utah County Health Department, and then we utilize the funds needed for contact tracing and for the coordination of testing as needed and the case investigations. It's at the discretion of the health department, though. If needed, some of that money can be utilized. All $600,000 does not have to be subcontracted, as I understand, but
it can be.
It can be, which we want to do. The schools are going to need resources, and the state Utah Department of Health already has 9 testing teams that will come in support of this. Our local health department is focused on the vaccine front, and most of our efforts, as you know, go to that. And last year, the testing was supported with the state Utah Department of Health and their mobile teams as needed. And we're hoping that can happen throughout the school year. But if they hit their thresholds throughout the state and their 9 teams of mobile testing units can't do it all, then that's when we have to step in and assist with that, or have other private contractors that can assist with that. So it doesn't just have to go to the school districts, it can also go to other subcontractors as well that have the expertise and the ability to perform the testing in a test to stay scenario.
So Eric, if I could, I'm going to refer back to the bill itself as much as possible. And I totally, there's some areas that I totally agree with, and that is that he even says in the highlights that it requires the Department of Health, which in this case is Utah County because they're speaking generally, to provide support to the local education agencies, the LEAs. They're referred to as the local education agencies that initiate widespread COVID-19 testing for schools. And so I see that in the highlighted, and I want to emphasize the words, provide support for. And then if you go over on 26-633, which is under 2, I guess it's, and I'm saying these just so if anybody's following, they can see where I'm getting these from. This is 53G-9 210. I'm going to read it under 2. It says, at the request, again, the request of an LEA, the department shall provide support, which we've already established that the county health department will provide support for the LEA's test to stay program if the school in the LEA reaches a case threshold, including by providing COVID-19 test samples, a mobile testing unit, and other supports requested by the LEA related to the LEA's test to stay program. And so when I'm reading there, and I emphasize that we're assisting, we're providing support to the LEAs, which is the local education authority there, and then going over under the heading of public schools, it says test to stay program means a program through which the LEA provides testing for COVID-19 for students during an outbreak of COVID-19 at a school in order to, and then it goes on to identify the cases and it talks about that. I'm emphasizing again that the test to stay program means a program through which the LEA provides the testing for, and we're assisting. That's how I'm reading it. You said before, we're assisting, they're providing the program, and then last, maybe not last, but anyway, towards last, It kind of identifies this under section B, in which it says a school with 1,500 or more students meets the case threshold if at least 2% of the school's students meet the conditions described in subsection 3-A. A school with fewer than 1,500 students meets the case threshold of 30 or more if the school's students meet a condition described in section 3A. And so as I read down through the law on this in-person instruction prioritization, I see it pretty defined to me that we're in a supporting role, and with us actually getting the grant as the county and administering the grant, I see that as more than a supporting role, especially when I read over and over that it's the LEA's responsibility to provide, and we are to support. And so I'm more inclined personally to say, I get that we're doing this. It's not like we're trying to avoid it. That's not the issue at all. But I think that the first part of this should be the state contracting with the school, and then the school then contracting with us as the subcontractor, which is identified in here as the subcontractor, or maybe others, to provide the services. That's how I'm reading down through the law as it's presented to us.
It's so much of this though is going to be a partnership. They cannot do an event. In statute, it does say the local education authority, their test to stay event, but the data flows through the health department. We'll know when the threshold is met. We'll know when, and so we're going to be communicating on a daily basis on monitoring positive cases. And so these resources help us do that, in addition to case investigation, which is something that is our responsibility, and the contact tracing. And so the $200,000 definitely is funds that we need to be able to have the resources to be able to when this happens. The whole goal of this is to keep schools open.
Sure.
And this enables that.
I have a question. So if you are the one doing the contact tracing and the investigation and facilitating the testing, is all of that information protected by HIPAA?
It is, yeah, it is.
Okay.
And so
More than HIPAA, actually. There's specific state laws about communicable disease information that makes it it's very protected, more protected than HIPAA. So.
Okay, so the reason I bring that up is I do know that anything that is done around health, but it's done by the schools, is not actually protected by HIPAA.
Yeah, but
And so I worry that if the schools were doing it, then that personal information and the health information of those students would have less protections than if we're doing it. For example, if your child gets an eye exam at school, it's not protected by HIPAA. Whereas if they get that eye exam at the doctor's office, it is. Do you know what I mean?
I do, but I don't see the correlation, because I think it's just a matter of where the contract or the grant resides with this. I think the work is still done from the health department.
Oh, okay. So you're wondering if the money
not-
goes to the LEA and then the LEA pays us for it, but we're still
Contracts
doing the
with
work.
us, we're still doing the work, it's still protected.
If I could address that, Commissioner, hopefully maybe clarify a little bit, the structure and the way that health departments are set up, and you referenced some code there. You might have in front of you 26A-1-108. I know I provided it to Brian yesterday. It talks about the jurisdiction of the local health department. It says that a local health department has jurisdiction in all unincorporated and incorporated areas of the county or counties in which it is established and shall enforce state health laws. So the state health department often uses local health departments as its local enforcement arm. So that might help explain why the contract's flowing through the county as opposed to the LEAs first. In addition to convenience, there's less health departments than there are school districts. So I can't speak to this, but I imagine that's one of the reasons why the state health department is going through the county health departments instead of 4 or 5 times as many contracts for school districts.
it's definitely going to be a shared, either way, we're going to be working closely with them on a daily basis. School started yesterday, and some schools started today. We also have charter schools that are going to need assistance, and we will be protecting health information. There will be one point of contact at each school where the information is shared with. That has to be known so that we'll know what, if the school doesn't know, we don't have access to the classes that the individual goes to, and they don't have access to the data of the positive case, so you can see where that. We need to then have a secure point of contact at the school to share that information with. So then we send out the letters for those that were exposed, and so you can see that partnership.
I can see that. That's
How does
not-
that work
that's
with
not really the
charter
issue.
schools?
Charter schools have their own ability to, some have their own in-house healthcare representatives. They have their own plans, but they're also required to do isolation and quarantine, disease plans to keep their students safe too. And so
I'm just wondering if they're doing testing, are we facilitating that, or are they contracting with someone else to do that? And then is the state reimbursing them for that? How is it working
What
there?
I see happening is us assisting the charter school with that positive case or cases. And if a testing event needs to happen, then we would reach out to the Utah Department of Health, who already has the testing teams built to then go out and do it for their student body, and so that they can test and find out. Everyone can then attend school, versus where last year there were closures. This whole process will help the charter as well as the public school. I think to my knowledge, the state resource I would try to deploy to the charters as well. If not, I would want the health department to assist the charters with meeting their needs. Some of the charters have limited resources because of the size and the structure. They have their own, as you know, we've discussed this, and you're familiar with their organization. They have their own administrative structures, and as if their own school board and trustees and things like that. And so
Would this money go to be supporting them as well?
it can be, yeah, for sure. I believe it could go to, they're a public school. And the tricky part is the private school. And they have private funding streams and things like that too. I don't know about a private K through 12, but a charter school would be a public entity. And so...
So this law would require the health department to work with a charter school to perform their testing, or to ensure that testing is taking place?
We would definitely need to, we have data that they don't have. So that already requires collaboration. The testing, again, we don't want to be in the business of doing testing for all over the county for hundreds and hundreds of schools. And that's why we're grateful that the Utah Department of Health and their school testing teams can assist with that. But if they are saturated in the response duties, then I see the health department needing to assist the charter school in figuring that out. But they are an LEA too, and so the responsibility of the event, we're not going to tell them, you have to do it on this day. They will assist them in planning it and designing it and helping them navigate through the complexities of it. There's a lot to it, and it's confusing. So
I understand the $200,000 that's coming to us for administration, for contact tracing and disease investigation and that part of it. And then but the rest of this money, if the state has event teams that are coming in and doing the testing, maybe I'm just confused as to what the rest of that money is for. I mean, if it's meant for school districts, I don't understand why it's not going directly to the school districts. If it's meant for school districts and charter schools, that's great. But then if the state is doing the testing, what if their 9 teams can handle all of our schools? Do we give that money back? Do we not get it unless we do the testing? Can you help me out there?
I think all of that's
It
on
is
the
a
table.
reimbursement
Yeah.
basis. It does say, the contract say this is a cost reimbursement contract.
Okay.
If we don't use it, we'll
Which-
get it back.
Right. We
Which
have
would-
no intention of just taking it and absorbing it. It will be as used.
And so it would happen the other way too. So if the $800,000 went to the school districts, if the school said, we want you to support this and help, then you would say, well, we need $200,000 on an administrative basis, and it would come back to the county on an administrative basis to support it. And so again, I just think the contract's in the wrong form. I think it should be with the schools. It's the work needs to be done. I don't think there's any disagreement with that. Whenever that comes up, it needs to be done. It's a matter of, I think, where the contract resides. And I as I read down through it, for me, it looks like we are the supporting role on this, not the front office for it when it comes to this grant. Not necessarily. I'm not talking about the work. I want to separate it. There is some separation there. That's how I see it. Is that this really should go to the school districts, and then they contract back with us, which puts us in a supportive role.
I see and understand that. With the school year now upon us, we do need access to the funds, hopefully as soon as we can. And knowing the process, working with the Department of Health, and we would be the only local health district making that request. So I would still hope that I understand and how you're reading the law. I still think we could facilitate and coordinate this and work as needed. If you would agree to that, if we still are able to bring on the contract, and in the event we need a test to stay event in the very near future, my hope would be that the commission would approve this and let us navigate this, assist the schools, be their technical arm, their data arm, they're educating kids. We really want to be the health side of it. And so that's where we're at.
What I see in this, Commissioner Lee, is that the health department at the state level and county level have this infrastructure that the schools do not have to address the various infectious diseases, whereas the schools have some limited medical support staff resources. The health department is more specialized in that area. So that's why I think, if I remember right, the money went from the state to the state health department, and then it's then funneled through its various county level health departments in support of schools. So that's why I think that's why they're doing that route.
Let me make it clear again. It has nothing to do with a level of expertise, because I think either way that you have the expertise. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is that according to how I'm reading the state law on this, we're in a supportive role, and to be the administrators of the grant puts us in in the prime seat. Let's just put it that way. Than as a supporting role, and that's how I'm viewing this. Is that it's that we're administering the grant. We have the money. This is the way it's going to go. How the work is done is going to be done either way, the same. Either if the schools have the prime role with it, or if the county has a prime role with it, I think the partnership's going to be the exact same. I just think that as I read down through the law on this, it puts us in a supporting role to it, and I think it'd be better to have that in the school district's prime role spot.
Quick question, but this is for Josh. Josh, do you know off the top of your head how many charter schools there are in our county?
No, I don't, but it's probably in the neighborhood of a dozen or more. I doubt it's over 25.
Okay. So somewhere between.
Seems like on average about one per town in my experience.
Okay. And the reason I ask that question is I wonder if I agree that I agree that the money should go to the schools, but I worry that if we do that, we're going to put charter schools at a disadvantage, because those charter schools don't receive grants from the state the same way that the traditional public education schools do. The charter schools tend to get skipped over on a lot of that. So for example, when we did CARES Act grants, the public school districts got a lot of money from CARES Act and the charter schools didn't. And so
That is concerning. I mean,
that's the only hitch I'm having in this, is that if the health department is coordinating it and they're making all of their services available to charter schools, then that means the dozen or so I don't know, between 15 and 20 charter schools in our county will get the same level of support. And that's kind of what's catching me on this. Other than that, I'm in agreement that this is really a school district thing and we should be in a supporting role. But if we're the ones who receive the grant, then we can give the same services to the charter schools.
So this is probably not the first time there's been a grant out there that applies to schools. So how has that worked in the past with charter schools from the health department's perspective?
Health promotion would be a good example. So
Okay.
if we have some type of prevention program in health promotion, then we can work, the funds come to us, we plan, implement, and evaluate the program within the school. And very rarely do we, it's our staff that are going into the school, providing the program, implementing it, conducting the survey methodology or the evaluative portion of it to make sure that we're meeting the grant deliverables and things like that. And so this does happen a lot. I mean,
So not to cut you off on it, but to go back specifically to this question, when the state gives monies out to public school, which is public and charter, they're all in the same category. How does that work though, in the sense of with a grant, if they give that out to both the public and the charter schools, how does that come back to the health department?
I'm not as familiar. I'm actually searching for an example of where I can think of one where it went to the charters and the schools at the same time.
If it's health related, it comes through the health department, and then we would then contract with the school districts, the schools, or the charter schools.
And this is health related. I
Right.
mean, the superintendents, they're educators. That's their business. We're health prevention folks. That's our business.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think this channel of funding does make sense to come our way. And
Well, I can see that if there's a challenge between
Okay.
the public and the challenge and the charter schools in the way of funding, and it's disproportionate, I could definitely lean the other direction.
So we just informed there's actually 24 charter schools. So there's 24 schools
Yeah.
that could potentially be left out. I hate to call on you again, Josh, but I know that you're on a board of a charter. So when the state traditionally gives a grant to the schools, does it funnel down to charter schools?
It's unfortunate. I think there's a lot of times when there are programs and opportunities that are for all schools, but there's often a burden on charter schools to proactively know that and then seek the money out. Certainly district schools are in a position where, there's probably a little more awareness of those programs, and so it gets pushed down. So I do know there's cases where there's an opportunity that any school can participate in, and you find some charter schools leverage that opportunity and some don't. And I couldn't speak to why the schools that don't, but I imagine there's often an information and kind of a coordination gap for charter schools, because charter schools tend to just be independent. They're public schools, but they're independent of a district. They might be independent of other charter schools. They may not be part of a network.
Probably usually don't have a staffer who's in charge of that.
That's right.
So, but I think what we can do is that the health department can reach out to the 24 charter schools and invite them to be part of this whole process, as well as the school districts.
Right. And so what I'm wondering is if we agree, because I agree philosophically with Commissioner Lee that I think that this should be through the schools, but I think we're putting the 24 charter schools and the probably thousands of children that attend those charter schools at a disadvantage there. If we agreed to take it at the health department level, then I would want to see greater effort to reaching out to those charter schools and letting them know the services that we have available, not just for this, but through other things. So it's, I'm looking at this saying, if we're going to accept the money on a basis because we want to help all students in Utah County, then we need to proactively help all students in Utah County and not just the ones at the 3 major school
Exactly.
districts.
And that's,
I can get on board with that.
yeah, and that's why I was saying, that's why I think that if as you reach out to the school districts, that you can currently reach out to all 24 charter schools.
And I will say that all 3 of our school districts, Nebo, Alpine, and Provo, something as important as COVID, with the vaccine rollout, for example, when teachers became eligible in January, districts made their facilities available because they opened up one school for a geographic area. charters were able to schedule on our vaccine scheduler to come to the district location for vaccine. So there's an example of where the
So
districts.
we already have an ongoing, we already have some kind of linkage between the districts and the charter
Yeah,
schools.
the school districts, I'm sure that there's always, you know.
Don't be so sure. There's not always coordination between the charter schools and the public school
I was about
district.
to say there's always like turf battles over funding and.
I mean,
and
we
Josh
we-
would be able to, if
we
he's on
do
the
it as-
board, he'd know better than I.
We
But-
do it as well. When we meet, we tend to meet with the three superintendents.
Right.
But we never had a discussion with the 24 or the others that are, also administering school stuff as well. And so I think that we're doing it the same as they're
school
getting
nurses-
overlooked to a certain extent.
Our
So
school
I
nurses
think-
are tied to our districts, though. That was that
tied to the
conversation.
districts, right? And so I can get on board with that as long as there's an understanding that there's going to be a concerted effort to go out there and it's all schools, not just. And that gives me a level of understanding that I was thinking mainly just the school districts as well. And I don't know where this law was written in the sense of how they were looking at it that way. But if going the route with the health department and being in that prime spot, which I'm uncomfortable with just the way it's written, but I prefer it differently, but seeing that there's going to be some that are left in the gaps, I can go that way. If you're okay with more work on that.
So the nursing director just texted me and said that the EPI group works specifically with, they have an EPI group that works specifically with charter schools regularly. There is already a group in the epidemiology division that works with charter schools.
And I would assume that would be the case, but that's us going that direction. I'm thinking about funding coming this direction. That's the issue that we're talking about right now.
Right. Where I think it's going to be a lot harder for the charter schools to get the funding from the state, whereas if the funding's coming to us, we can funnel it down to the charter schools.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and say I will move to approve item number 28, and I will put on there that I would like there to ensure that there is open communication with the 24 charter schools in our county to ensure that they are getting the same services that the schools in the 3 school districts are getting as well.
And just to be clear, the law says if the LEA requests, then the health department must support. So if a charter school doesn't request, then we don't have an obligation under the statute, but that coordination will continue.
Right.
Just a point of clarification.
But even us just sending out a note saying,
Right.
if
Courtesy.
something happens,
Yes.
you have the ability to ask us
Saying,
and we will support
"Please
you.
request."
Because they
Yeah.
don't have the staff. They may or may not know that that's an option. So I would like to see us proactively reach out to them just to let them know that it's an option.
Absolutely.
And I'm okay, moving to approve number 28, assuming that we will reach out to the charter schools in the area and let them know that we are an available resource.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of that would be just the ongoing communication that you have with the districts is concurrent with the other 24 charter schools, and I can second that motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve and authorize the signing of the agreement with the Utah Department of Health for COVID-19 testing activities in K through 12 with some additional comments as stated by Commissioner Gardner. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay, number 29 is to approve and authorize the signing of an Amendment 2 to 2010-10 with the Utah Department of Health for the asthma home visiting program.
I'm the one that held this one. I'm just wondering, can you tell me a little bit about this program and what it is and what it's for?
This program, we were one of the first counties in the state years ago to start. We were given seed money to do asthma prevention and control. Every asthma is a concern all over this nation. Often there are triggers in the home that parents don't even know about. And one of the leading causes of visits to emergency rooms are breathing emergencies for children. And many, if not most of those, could have been prevented had the parent known of simple things that they could do to remove those triggers, such as mold and pet dander and things like that. Simple, some more involved, others not. A lot of it is cost effective, and so a lot of this is stemming from years of development. And the state asthma program is fantastic at the Utah Department of Health. And we have consistently had an asthma contract, probably longer than any health district in the state of Utah. And Andrea Jensen, you've probably an award-winning health educator that works here that is nationally recognized as she's one of a very few certified asthma educators, and has evolved a program to help with asthma prevention for all ages, but specifically for also for pediatric as well. And she, here's a good example. I could talk for an hour about this if you'd let me. Near and dear to my heart, as health promotion is something that I've been involved with my whole career. During COVID, we were no longer able to do asthma home visits in the home due to COVID. That was restricted. We were unable to do that. So Andrea quickly pivoted to there were challenges, but she figured it out. And to this day, she's doing asthma home visits virtually and helping low-income residents throughout our county and anyone needing asthma prevention resources. And so she works with physicians, she works with HUD, she works with affordable housing for policies that are asthma friendly, and the list goes on and on. So indoor air quality and other triggers. So that's the gist of it, is to prevent asthma triggers, as well as educate, inform, and help people reduce triggers and things like that.
So how do you decide which homes you're going to go to?
So we are required to work with families that are eligible to participate in this, but so we focus our outreach efforts, like in, for example, in areas of the county where there's lower SES, socioeconomic status, and we also have partnerships with the HEAT program, and that's a great point. We also have Select Health provides referrals specifically for those families that are at highest need. If anybody calls the asthma program, they're going to provide assistance telephonically, whatever they can. Programmatically, it's focused on those that are at highest risk, but because those are the individuals that suffer the most.
So if a child has breathing problems and they end up at the emergency room, and let's say they have Select Health or maybe not, and there's a referral to you, do they get the referral and then they call you, or do you get the referral and then you call them?
I believe they have to opt in.
They have to opt in. So they get the option for referral for the asthma program, and then they call you and request this.
That is sharing of HIPAA protected information. So if they opt into the program, say, yes, I want to be contacted, that's then
Okay. So like if their pediatrician
Right.
wanted them to, the pediatrician would say, here's the information, and then they would opt in.
We're helping the hospital group with their client, and they're helping us serve the public resident. So it's a cross-pollinating thing, and we also have an agreement, rights issue on the transfer of that information for the clients.
So yeah, so you're not getting the referrals, they get the referral, and then they contact you.
It's through their. Do you remember that?
So it's a business associate agreement, which is HIPAA approved, where the referrals come to us from Select Health, but the patient is pre-authorized. Yes, you can share my information.
Okay, so the patient has authorized it ahead of time.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And we also do lots of other outreach that I could, in Spanish and English and other ways of also helping people know about it. Just educating and informing is a huge component of our responsibility as a local health district. And so this is a very good program that's been proven successful year after year.
And how long has it been in effect?
It's been over 10 years,
Okay.
and Andrea Jensen is a gem for the state of Utah when it comes to asthma prevention and control. She has a blog that is a part of the national, included in the Library of Congress. They've actually utilized that, and it's voted in the top 10 in the nation as my mom is an asthma. No, I can't. Anyway, it's my life as an asthma mom, because she herself has 3 individuals and her whole family, and so she's the guru. If you want to know about this program, I would highly, I wish you were here today because she could eloquently describe, you know, the great value that's added to the service to the residents that we're asked to serve. So,
Yeah, sounds
thanks
great.
for your question.
So for,
Yes.
on a funding basis, the $194,000 or so comes from where?
All of this funding is coming from it's CDC to the Utah Department of Health. They take the larger portion of that and they divvy it up to those health districts that apply for it. And then we've been awarded funding on a repetitive 3 or 5 year cycle for this. And I believe this year is $65,000 split out amongst the needs. And some years it's more, some years it's less.
So this is a grant that we applied for?
It's a grant that we apply for,
Okay.
that we want. We see the value in us offering the service to the residents of Utah County. If we don't, we wouldn't be able to provide this service.
Right.
So much of what we do is in that vein. So,
Yeah, it's along the idea of our role is to educate and inform.
and it's a missed opportunity if we don't apply for the funding, don't receive it, and can't do it. So
Yeah.
that's
On
the
a,
value.
on
in
a
it.
funding basis, do you know the rough percentages of what actually gets down into like the home? Because I mean, you're going to have personnel costs, you're going to have expenses in there. So of that 190 something thousand dollars that we're
Most-
getting, what?
In
I
for
see
health,
some of it in here, but
for
I just
prevention
wonder.
and health promotion contracts, the vast majority goes towards our personnel and benefits to be able to run the program. That's the most expensive, but we have some budget for supplies and mileage to go out to the homes. COVID was a bizarre year. We didn't do a lot of driving, right? But most of it is to offer the services. We have to have the people to do it. It's definitely staffing is what's needed to be able, health educators, certified health education specialists that are going out and performing the work.
Yeah, I would
But
imagine
that's still
working with
work
parents. who
that's still
themselves-
work in the home because you're providing somebody that is trained to
Yeah.
do it, that's in the home. So I mean, there's a certain offset with that, with the personnel. Even though I see on here it's $59,000 for personnel, about $3,800 for travel, materials at $620, $500 for mattress and pillow coverings, and then $348, which doesn't add up. You know, for 190, you're still. You still have well over $100,000 that's probably still going into somewhere into that program. Besides,
I think that 194 is for the whole 5-year contract.
Yeah, it's a 5-year contract, so $65,000
Oh.
per year. And so, sorry, I should have made that clear.
I saw now I see it. I'm sorry because
Yeah.
it does
If
say
you-
funding up above, but I
Yeah.
didn't stretch it all the way out 2020. So we're in the second year.
And I believe a
Of that-
5-year grant.
of the 5-year?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they,
Yeah.
and they.
Are we at the tail end because there's only three? There's only
August 24.
21 and 2022 left.
I'm
Anyway,
not, I'm not
that's
sure
just
on the
me.
year we're at. If,
It's September
And it
through
started,
August.
It started fiscal year.
My guess is going to be it's
2019.
a 3. Well, you have to say 3 years, 65
It says
times
on-
3.
21.
We're on
21,
fiscal year
22.
3, I think.
Okay.
3 year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have been fortunate to receive funding. We've never not received this grant, and I think that shows the value of and the recognition received by the Utah Department of Health and even nationally. This is an award-winning program nationally. We're very proud of it and happy and pleased to offer it to the residents. And we haven't had a lapse in funding, and I think it's because of the quality of the work performed by those that conduct it and how it's received by the public. So what I ought to do is maybe have the Utah County Asthma Control Program provide maybe a work session where we could share. It really is impressive. I'm barely scraping the surface just because we have 100 different programs and services. You really ought to have Andrea Jensen share the what this has evolved into. It's way more involved than what I'm sharing. I wish I was the expert. It's impossible. I'm scraping the surface of what they do. But thanks for taking the time and energy to learn more about it, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for answering our questions and informing us on what that program was.
Anytime. Thanks.
That, I will make a motion to approve item number 29.
And I will second that motion.
A motion and a second to approve item number 29. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, we already took care of the work session.
Item number 32.
Now we're going to move into our closed meetings.
No, did we not?
And so, thank you for coming. Is there any general public comment?
Okay,
Seeing none, we'll move into our closed meetings.
okay, thank you.
Commissioners?
Yes.